Welcome to the East Martian Chronicles podcast.
And did those feet in ancient time walk upon England's mountains green? And was the holy Lamb of God on England's pleasant...
It's July 2021 and today's podcast is our very first reading group discussion. The book we've chosen was written over 100 years ago by a working man, and it's an accurate historical account of the lives of working people and a condemnation of the horrors of capitalism. The Ragged Trousered Philanthropists. Our ragged reading group are Carolyn, Lee, Josie and Al, and I'm your host, Billy. We start out by listening to a reading of the first couple of pages of the book, which lays out the context and begins to introduce the ragged trousered ones. So before proceeding, go and get the book or the audio version and check out the first couple of pages to check in with the discussion. So that's the opening. What are your thoughts? What did you notice?
Well, I just thought it sounded like any normal modern building site, really.
Yeah.
Obviously, the workers themselves look a bit more shabbily dressed than probably modern workers are, but the actual setting just seems like a normal building site.
Al, you were about to speak.
I was just about to say that's what Lee had said, but it struck me when I first read the book, and again when you first listened to it, that the way the state the cave was in, that it was a job which promised work for a long time. If the job was to be done decently. But obviously, very quickly, I realised that because of the nature of the book, that it wasn't going to be done that way. So that was when I first read it, I always recall that situation.
Yeah. How about Carolyn or Josie? Any comments? What did you notice here in this opening?
I think that the house is the first character that we meet in the story, and that it has a character, it has a personality, and it's very significant, and it's not an accident that it's called the cave. And Billy and I have had this conversation. So the cave, of course, refers to Plato's cave, and this is a piece of classical writing from that long ago period, which was talking about people's kind of shared ignorance and fear, and a place where people were sort of shut in and didn't want to leave for fear of what they might find on the outside. And it's tucked away. It's an unpleasant environment, full of character. So I think the house is of a huge kind of significance and sort of symbolic importance in the story. So that sort of really struck today, and the detail in which Tressel describes its condition is really interesting. It's kind of decrepitude and the things that need doing to it to bring it back to any form of life. Really interesting. So that was my first
fascinating seeing the house as a character. I've never looked at it from that way. How fascinating. No, it's made me think. Yeah, fascinating.
I didn't know the link to Plato, but that's great. Yeah, and I thought the dangers that the house is offering to these men, it's just terrible, and that sense of separateness. This, as it says, it's tucked away. It's this. It feels as though it's been a secret in the very sort of near past. And I haven't read all of the book. I don't know how this is going to play out, but definitely felt like it was being written as a piece of fiction, setting up the whole scene. But that link to Plato is, wow, that just brings out so much more meaning.
Thanks, Carolyn. Lee.
Yeah, I like the I like the names that he uses, like, you know, Mugsborough as the town and Rushton and Co, which we'll probably get to. We'll find out why it's called that later, I'm sure. And, but another thing, what I always say, when you read it in print, Tressel always puts the term or phrase "plenty of work" in capital left. Well, it's capital plenty of work.
Yeah.
Uses capital letters, and I always wondered why he did that.
Any suggestions? Why would Tressel capitalise "plenty of work"?
It could be being quite sarcastic.
Yeah. Because there should have been plenty. There should have been plenty of work, but I think he was maybe setting the scene that, you know, there wasn't going to be.
Yeah.
Oh, that's what they're being sold, isn't it, all the time?
It's a sales pitch.
Yeah, because this is satirical.
That's what it's all about.
Yeah. And, you know, I mean, that fits in with that idea of the cave. The inhabitants of Plato's cave were sat with their backs to the sun, and all they ever saw was the shadows on the wall. And they were chained together in their ignorance. And they, you know, that idea, plenty of work, so they can be sold any old guff and take it in, you know, because they're not seeing the reality. I guess that's the idea behind the cave. So if we're talking about names, Lee, I think you're absolutely right. Mugsborough is great, isn't it? Rushton and Co. So what about the title of the book itself? I mean, have we seen the Ragged Trousers already? Who showed us that?
Yeah, little Bert.
Bert,
Oh, poor Bert. He's the picture of poverty, isn't he?
Yeah.
He's what is he? 15 years old.
Yeah.
So he's under height because he's 4 foot something, isn't he? So he's probably under height. He's thin and he's pale, and you sort of think he's a weak little lad. He's ill dressed. He won't have enough food. And he just looks like that Dickensian kind of picture of abject poverty. And I think, you know, Tressel would have probably been writing with a bit of a nod maybe to Dickens, and maybe, you know, in our minds when we read this, if we've read Oliver Twist, we perhaps have those little ragamuffins in mind, but this is a kind of a more honest portrayal in some ways than that. You know, this is what, you know, these poor children genuinely look like, and it's not there to do the kind of melodramatic affect that Dickens sometimes went for. It's just a little presentation of what it looks like to actually be poor.
I always thought when I read the book that it was Tressel's attempt to sort of lead as he went on to be thankful for what you get. And he started that sort of thought very early in your minds with Bert, that you know, be thankful because that's what you got, you know, especially because of his age and the chance it'd probably be the only job because of his stature and everything else and his upbringing he would get. And then I think it then led into all the other characters where all the other characters would be thankful for what you've got. I don't know if that was Tressel's attempt, but that's how I always saw it.
For the next sections, we hone in on Scal and Sophie Rickard's fantastic graphic novel version, and our ragged readers deliver a rather unexpected and completely unpracticed live-action reading around the causes of poverty, the first chapter in the graphic novel, and starting here with page 14. Okay, so, with feeling.
It's a damn shame these people are allowed to take the bread out of English people's mouths. They ought to be driven out into the bloody sea.
Even here in Mugsborough, we're overrun with foreigners. Nearly all the waiters and the cooks at the Grand Hotel are foreign.
The country's in hell of a state. Poverty, hunger and misery has invaded thousands of homes.
It's the bloody foreigners. Down with them and all their works. Out with them. The country will be ruined if it's not protected in some way.
It's all quite plain and simple. The foreigner is our enemy, the cause of poverty and bad trade.
Of you seem to think that it was a great mistake on God's part to make so many foreigners. You ought to hold a meeting about it, pass a resolution like this. This meeting of British Christians indignantly protests against the action of the Supreme Being in having created so many foreigners, and calls upon him to utterly exterminate them from the face of the earth, which rightly belongs to the British people.
Right. So just how do you feel about what they're saying? What resonances are there for you?
How many times have you heard that in the East Marsh about the Polish taking our jobs? How many times have we heard that? That's, comes straight to mind, always has done, what he was trying to write there.
It's not an idea that's gone away, is it?
No.
Since 1910, and it's a very common trope, I think. Look anywhere to blame rather than actually at the source and at the true cause. So look anywhere other than at the condition that you're in, and look at it truthfully. I mean, we've had it this past week or so, haven't we? The sort of resurrection of this really ugly kind of trope at national level. It doesn't go away, and every time it appears, it has to be challenged. And I think that's what Owen's doing, isn't it? At the end there, he's making the first challenge. He's being very sarcastic, but he's making the first challenge.
What do you think, Lee?
That's how it was all the way through the Brexit referendum, wasn't it? It was all about division, and the finger was pointed at foreign, especially by UKIP. Saying we said there was Farage's infamous billboard where there was a long line of in inverted commas foreigners.
Yeah. And it's really tragic, isn't it? Because these are people, working class people, who have next to nothing, pointing the finger at foreign workers who have next to nothing, and putting the responsibility and the blame there rather than seeing what they actually have in common. And I think that's one of the great stunts of those kind of thinkers. And well, I wouldn't say Nigel Farage is a thinker, but people who spout these kinds of things and promote these kinds of views, that they stop people finding what they have in common. So if all these men actually met some foreign workers and looked at their condition, they might actually say, well, actually these guys are no different to us. There isn't enough food in their bellies, there are holes in their boots, there's nothing to take, there's nothing left at the end of the week. It's the same story of that level of poverty. But those kind of narratives are powerful at driving wedges between people.
So let's move on. We've got some other causes of poverty here. This is still chapter 1 from the graphic novel Ragged Trousered Philanthropists, and this is called The Causes of Poverty, and it's page 17, if you wish to follow at home.
Greatest cause of poverty is overpopulation.
Yes, there's too many people and not enough work.
Overpopulation? When there's thousands of acres of uncultivated land in England without a house or a human being to be seen. Is overpopulation the cause in Ireland? Within the last 50 years, the population of Ireland has more than halved. Exterminated by famine or got rid of by emigration, but they haven't got rid of poverty. Perhaps you think that half the population in this country ought to be exterminated as well.
Drink is the cause of poverty.
And there's plenty what's too lazy to work. Some of the buggers have never done a fair day's work in all their bloody lives. Then there's all this newfangled machinery that's ruining everything. They reckon 2 men can do as much as 20 with these here machines.
Yeah, right. Thanks, Mr. Crass. So what do we think to that then? What are your first thoughts on that one?
Again, we've heard all this before, haven't we?
So what are the causes of poverty that they're suggesting here?
Overpopulation and too many people. I mean, and again, that's a myth, isn't it? Which Owen, because he knows things, he's educated himself. He can say, well, this just isn't true. And he cites the condition of the Irish as this kind of example. And then, of course, Crass resorts to the one that we hear. I mean, how many times have we heard this? I mean, I cannot count the times I've heard this in my lifetime, and it is just so dull and wearying. I've never done a fair day's work in all their lives. Yeah. That ridiculous notion of laziness. I mean, it's just lazy thinking.
It is. So that whole, we need to get off their asses and find a job. Well, yeah, good luck to them because, yeah.
And there's a book come out in the last couple of years called Trespass, talking about just how many thousands of acres of uncultivated land there are in England that we can't go on because of the trespass law, which is just increased in intensity of late.
Right.
And that's exactly what's being said here as well.
Isn't it 96% of the land in the United Kingdom is not accessible to the people?
I don't know exactly, but it wouldn't surprise me.
That's incredible.
Yeah, 96%. I mean, when you can't quite imagine or believe it, can you?
No, not at all. No, I'm still struggling to get that into my head.
Yeah, and there are very, very draconian laws to keep people off land, and it applies to water as well. I don't know if you knew that as well, that people can get fished out of rivers and told, get out of my river. If they're kayaking or swimming in a river, because it's beyond somebody's land that is owned, and you don't have access to it, and it's mind-boggling, actually.
So the other elements suggested here: drink is the cause of poverty, and machines, newfangled machinery.
Well, that's also a line that's used in it, though. They've always got enough money to drink.
Yeah.
Yes.
I hear that most days at work in some form or another. So yeah. Not that I'm saying it is the cause of poverty. I'm just saying it's a common old belief.
Yeah.
Even today.
It's looking like quite a reflection of our times in some ways. Than from long ago. So, I mean, obviously, machines or newfangled machinery, particularly computerized robot kind of machinery, really is going or is making changes as well in the same way that he's suggesting here, actually. And back in the day, machines literally were putting craftspeople out of work. They put the spinners out of work in the mills, didn't they, in the 18th century? So, I mean, he's actually got a point there, but is that the cause of poverty?
No.
No.
So we'll leave that hanging then, and going to move on to the very last one then. So it's a bit longer. You've got your parts. So this one is actually what is poverty, and it's pages 20 to 23. This section is where Frank Owen actually talks about what is poverty and starts, I believe, to move some of the men a little bit, but we'll see. So take it away, Lee.
Well, there ain't no use in the likes of us troubling our heads or quarrelling about politics. It don't make a damn a difference who you vote for or who gets in. They're all the same. The sensible thing is to try and make the best as things as we find them. Enjoy yourselves and do the best we can for each other. Life's too short to quarrel, and we'll soon all be dead.
Well, what do you mean by poverty? We ain't got no money, of course. Well, that's true enough, Crass. But money itself is not wealth. It's of no use whatever. Supposing you and Harlow were shipwrecked on a desert island, and you saved from the wreck a bag containing 1,000 sovereigns. but Harlow saved a tin of biscuits and a bottle of water. Who'd be richer, you or Harlow? But then, you see, we ain't shipwrecked on no dissolute island at all. That's the worst of your arguments, Owen. You can't never get very far without supposing some bloody ridiculous thing or other. Never mind about supposing things what ain't true. Let's have facts and common sense.
Here. That's what we want. A little common sense.
What do you mean by poverty then?
Poverty is when people are not able to secure for themselves the benefits of civilization, the necessities, comforts, pleasures, and refinements of life. Leisure, books, theatres, pictures, music, holidays, travel, good and beautiful homes, good clothes, good and pleasant food. If a man has only the bare necessities of existence, that man's family is living in poverty. Since he can't enjoy the advantages of civilization, he might just as well be a savage. At least a savage knows nothing of what is deprived. Civilization is the common heritage of all. Every little child that is born into the world, no matter who or where, is one of the heirs of all the ages that have gone before. Why is it that we are deprived of this inheritance and our children can't even get the bare necessities? Instead of enjoying the advantages of civilization, we are worse off than slaves. For if we were slaves, it would be in our owners' interests to see to it that we always had food.
You can speak for yourself, but I tell you, I don't put myself down as a slave.
Nor me neither. Let them call themselves slaves as wants to. Jesus Christ, it's 4 minutes past 1. Oh, it's only Monday.
Fantastic. We are nailing this. I think we might do the whole thing as an audio book. So, yeah, wow. So what's your thoughts, folks? What was going on there?
I think that first response to it, they immediately jump in, don't they, and say, why, if you've got no money, of course, because there's that immediate equation of poverty, meaning you just don't have any money. And of course, that is important. But what Owen does is he takes it to the next level, doesn't he? He starts to talk about value rather than just hard cash. And I think that's where it gets quite subtle, actually. And you start to see the nuance of what Tressel's doing, and it's very thoughtful.
Really well done, isn't it? I mean, I frequently use the little trope because, you know, people who are poor are also labelled and stereotyped and you know, bullied and othered in that way. And poverty is very often simply described as a lack of character. And I come back to that saying it's not a lack of character, it's a lack of cash. But as you say, this is quite nuanced, isn't it? Because the desert island idea saying, you know, okay, so who's poor now? One of them's got loads of coins or folding or whatever. The other one's got beer or water or food, you know. And so that person is richer because what was the word you used, Josie?
Value.
Yeah. So
yeah.
Just throw that open. What do you think the rest of you?
I think he's trying to paint the picture, Billy, that your life can be rich in so many ways. You know, that richness is not always about money. It's about your family. It's about the things you enjoy, about the things you're able to do. That's how I sort of always read this section of the book. That it's really he's beginning to get them to think another way. They're still very anti it, but he's just planting seeds, you know, giving them some thoughts, you know, and hoping that, you know, it'll come out later and, you know, that they'll actually come to their own conclusions. I've always understood the reasons, but every time if I've got any ever doubts, It always gives me the strength to keep going.
Thanks, Al. Who else?
Yeah, I agree with Al. I mean, we've listened to the audio and read a few pages and paragraphs of the book, and yeah, it just brings it all home that really nothing has really changed. Things are the same now as they were then. It's very depressing, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, Lee.
Yeah, nothing, like you say, nothing has changed, and it didn't work then, and the system doesn't work now. And the cultural capital that the people have been kicked out from, I can't think of a better way of putting it, is for a reason, isn't it? It's that cultural capital can raise awareness, and it's a dangerous thing to this system. The system's been prolonged to keep people in the cave. It doesn't want people really to think for themselves and have new ideas.
Yeah. And I just put, actually, unusually for me, who I like to play the role of the Eeyore and always see the dark. But actually, I love these conversations. I just hope we can have more conversations like this in real time, in real space,
Yeah.
with each other, to meet and have these discussions, to share these moments, to excite people about these kinds of dialogues, and to get some really fiery debate going, because I think that way we can light fires, and we can actually maybe turn people around from the shadows on the wall and get them looking at the sun.
That's why we're here, Josie. That's why we're here tonight, because everybody around this table genuinely believes that, we wouldn't be here, would we?
No, we wouldn't.
We'd be sat in the sun. We genuinely believe in what we're doing, same as Owen believed in what he was doing.
Yeah.
We're the modern day Owens in whatever way we're doing it. We're the modern day Owens.
Yeah. Oh, that's lovely, Al. Yeah. Yeah, I love that.
Wow. So for me, it's that thing about poverty not being a lack of character, it being a lack of cash. But actually, that's me defending people against stereotyping. But this has shown me that actually it goes further. And when Frank Owen says poverty is when people are not able to secure for themselves the benefits of civilization, that nails it for me. And as Carolyn says, why shouldn't everybody have nice things? And I've been really moved doing this with you tonight. It was unexpectedly great fun listening to the little cartoon strips coming to life. It was fantastic. And we didn't practice, of course.
No,
but yeah.
No.
So next time, eh? Wasn't that fantastic? Thanks to our ragged readers, Carolyn, Lee, Josie and Al, for a really stimulating discussion. There is a small correction to make. The statistic about the land the majority of people in England are excluded from is 92%, not 96%, as stated in the podcast. It remains a shocking figure. Our next 4 podcasts are for children of all ages. Hosted by our very own Josie Moon, she will be reading her story, The Magic Garden, in 4 instalments over this hot summer month. We will be having at least 2 more explorations of the Ragged Trousered Philanthropists by our ragged readers, and that could be you, because you've got time to go and get the original book, the graphic novel version, or the audio book, and come and join us. You can get in touch with us by email to info@eastmarshunited.org, by Twitter @eastmarshunited, or find us on Facebook, East Marsh United. See you soon.
Bring me my boy.